Hey everybody, welcome back to another story from the Universal Design Project. I'm happy to share Bonnie Downey's story with you today because her experience is not uncommon. She experienced a fall in which she broke her ankle and her arm, and that really threw her life upside down for quite a few months. She went home to a house that was not accessible for her. She had stairs just to get inside. She didn't have any equipment to move around, and so it really was taxing on her and all of the activities that she needed to perform during the day, even to go to work. She also made some good points in her interview about how this injury impacted her emotionally. Yes, this was something short-term for her, but she was able to relate that to what would this be if this was something long-term. And you know, she had this experience that was really difficult to just take care of daily tasks, and it really impacted her quality of life and her self-esteem. So I think there's a lot of great information in here and good advice for people who are designing homes and who are thinking about how functional the community is. So enjoy Bonnie's story, and thanks for listening.
My name is Bonnie Downey. I am 57 years old, almost 58, and I live in Massanutten, Virginia.
And what do you do during the day?
I am a first grade teacher. This is my 35th year of teaching.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you got injured and what happened.
All right, at the beginning of October, my whole family went to an apple orchard as a fun Saturday activity, and within a little bit of time, we had an accident where there was a rotten apple under the grass, and my right foot slid on it, and because we were on a mountain, my left foot just folded in half, and I caught myself with my left arm, so I had 3 fractures in my left ankle and 1 fracture in my radius on my left wrist.
So, and I'm assuming you had to have surgery for that?
Yes, I had surgery a week after the incident where they had to put some plate in my ankle and a few screws.
And so, were you able to put weight on anything?
No. At first, especially when it first happened, it was a lot of pain, and I went to the hospital by ambulance, which I'd never gone to the hospital by ambulance before, so that was a new experience. And then I ended up having to go home from the emergency room with absolutely no wheelchair, no walker, nothing. So when we got home, we had to figure out how I was going to get in the house and how I was going to get up our stairs. We have 3 levels. So at first we got to the house and I was still on pain meds, so I was a little woozy. And so I told my husband to get the desk chair, which happens to be on wheels. And our bottom level is a family room. And so we took the desk chair and he brought it out to the car. I sat down in it and we rolled me into the house. We had to, of course, go over the door frame. We went across the family room, which is carpeted, which was kind of rough to push against the carpet. Then I had to decide how I was going to get up the stairs, which it's a full flight of stairs to the next level, which is where the rest of the main house is. So we have the kitchen, the living room, our bedroom, bath and a half, all up on that level. And there's no bathroom in the family room downstairs, so I had to go up.
Like you had to figure out a way how to get upstairs.
And so I ended up sitting down and going up each stair while my husband held my foot. I felt like the bones were still moving because it hadn't been fixed yet, so he held my foot and I got up to the top, and then I had to figure out how I was going to get off my bottom into another chair of some sort upstairs.
Yeah. Wow.
At the last minute, though, we did remember that we had my mother's seated walker, and so he went and found that in the junk area of our basement and brought it up, and he helped me sit up on the seated walker, and then I could roll to the recliner. And then I literally spent 2 weeks in the recliner.
Wow. Did you have to make any other changes or use any other equipment during this time?
Well, at first, I was in a lot of pain, so I didn't move around a lot, but everybody has to use the restroom, so I couldn't even close the recliner. So that was a real hard thing. I'd get in the recliner, I would sleep a lot, and then I would try to figure out how to get out of the recliner. My husband could not leave me. So the whole first week, he had somebody come and stay with me because I couldn't get out of the recliner by myself, and he had to go back to work. To get from the recliner to the restroom, which was right off the kitchen, none of the door frames in that restroom, the door frame's not large enough to get the seated walker through, so I literally had to stand on my one good leg, and my left arm was bent in in a cast that was bent, so I had to kind of wiggle the walker with the seat sideways to get in the bathroom, and then figure out how I was going to get in the bathroom. So that was hard, and I didn't do any food preparation or anything like that. It was just too much that first week or two.
Sure. And could you, I mean, I guess you couldn't even close the door into that bathroom either.
People would come and stay with me, and my daughter, my son, friends, and I would tell them they had to sit on the living room side of the house so I could use the restroom because the door would not close with the walker in there.
Sure. Now, so a lot of frustration, not only because you broke something, but then your home just wasn't.
It wasn't the same. And I'm a very independent person, and did not like asking for help, and I would try to do things as much as I could alone, but I had to ask for a lot of help, especially the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Sure. So. Yeah. So talk about your bathroom for like your shower and things like that. How was that process?
Well, my husband would go to work and leave somebody there to help me. And I finally got to the point where I needed a shower, and we did not have a shower chair or anything like that. So he basically went to the deck and pulled a lawn chair off the deck, a plastic lawn chair, and brought it in. And luckily, a couple years before, we had just put a tiled shower in the bathroom with a shower curtain. There's no door, and so we were able to put the the deck chair in the shower. But it's a lower deck chair, so it was very difficult to get into the shower, to sit on the deck chair, to take a shower, because I couldn't turn it while I was in the shower, and I just felt like it just was not working. Yeah. So it took 45 minutes to take a shower the very first time, and I had to find ways to cover my casts, and my husband didn't dare leave me because I was afraid of falling, or so. We did a lot. We took all the carpets up in the house, so I could get my seated walker through, and we had another just regular walker in the bathroom, so I could at least hold myself up for a second till I could get into the seated walker again. But that bathroom does not allow the seated walker to get in either, so we left that in the bedroom to be able to get into the bathroom. It just was crazy.
Oh, I'm sure.
So eventually, our daughter-in-law is a physical therapist, and she had somebody donate a shower seat that was nice and large. It was too large for the lady that purchased it, so it was brand new. And so she donated to the clinic where my daughter-in-law works in Ruckersville. Nice. So she said to give it to somebody who needed it. So my daughter-in-law thought of me immediately, and we had it within a week, and that made showering so much easier because it had a handle. It was easily moved in and out for when my husband had to shower. Sure. And it was much safer because I had suction cups on the bottom. Right. I felt much more confident, and then I could shower independently.
Now, did your shower already have like a handheld?
It does.
Shower head?
Yes, it does. It has a large one that stays up there, but then the handheld can come down. So my husband would pull it down for me because I couldn't even stand up to reach it because it was tall. So he would pull it down, and I had that, and I could shower easily then.
Cool. One of the things that we find often is people often install like a shower seat in a shower, but it's at the very, very back. And so if your seat isn't situated well and you can't safely stand up, then you're stuck because you can't reach the controls and things like that. So that's one of my big soapboxes that but at least with a seat like that, you can move it and adjust it to where you need it to be.
It's actually it almost looked like a bench. It was not a single chair. Like two people could have sat on it, but so I could sit, and then I could turn and face the shower head, and then the shower head wasn't far from me, and then I could turn and grab the shampoo from behind me and my soap from behind me, and it worked really well to have that. Yeah.
You said originally you didn't do any cooking or food prep or anything like that. So when you finally got to the point where you wanted to attempt it, did you have to make any adjustments in your kitchen?
Well, we didn't make a lot of adjustments, although I had a hard time reaching a lot of the things. I would have to, once I had my surgery and I felt like my foot was more stable, and I got my elbow cast off, and it was just a short cast where I could extend my arm, I was able to stand up on my one good leg and reach stuff. But there were times, especially at the end of the day, that I was exhausted, and I didn't have the strength to even stand up. And so we had a lot of people bring food in, but at the same time, when I was there by myself, and after a while I would, have to go make some food. So I learned how to pull the bread box close to me to get the bread out, to have paper cups down and paper plates down where I could reach them.
Sure.
In the refrigerator, stuff mainly on the main shelves right in front of me, not on the top shelves. So yeah, we did have to do some adjusting with that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so basically bringing stuff closer to you within reach,
Yes.
so you wouldn't have to do
Yes.
a lot of extra up and down, up and down.
Mm-hmm.
No, that makes sense.
We luckily had purchased a bed that actually sits up. So
Nice.
we do have an electric bed. We already had that. So in order to elevate my foot or elevate my head, we had that. So that was already in place. I did have to, bring a lot more pillows and stuff. But our recliner was so deep that we actually brought our deck furniture pads that we sit on the deck furniture and put that under me so it would raise me up a little higher.
Okay.
So that was another thing that we did. Our table was on the left side of me originally, with the lamp, and I had my daughter move everything to the right side because I couldn't even extend my elbow
use
to
that
reach
side.
anything.
Uh-huh.
And even after I could, my wrist was too weak to lift even a cup of hot tea. So everything got moved to the right side, and it had all my medicines, it had my lotions, it had tissues, it had everything I needed, so that I didn't have to always get up and down to get what I needed, because I was taking Tylenol every couple hours and other medicines. So we did do some modifying with that.
In terms of what other people don't know about how this has impacted your life, what has been the number one thing regarding your abilities that you want other people to understand?
Well, having been a very independent, even at my age, I'm a very independent person. I like to have all my ducks in a row. I'm very controlling. I like to have everything just right, and I have had to learn to depend on other people. That's a hard thing for me to do, so it's been kind of an embarrassment, but more of I don't want to hassle other people. So there have been things that I have gone without because I don't want to ask people to help me, or there are times that I feel embarrassed when people do help me with basic things like getting in the shower, or hiding in the living room so I can go to the bathroom in the other part of the house. So I just want people to recognize that this is hard for anybody, even if it's temporary, but that we all need to recognize that there are a lot of people out there that this is not temporary, and that we need to recognize that they need as much help as they can in their environments, and let them be independent, because that's where you get your esteem from, your independence.
No, yeah, that's very true, because when you're used to being independent and then you have to rely on people for everything, it's a big switch.
Yes. It was very hard because I couldn't get out of the house, so I was the first couple weeks I would just go to the front door and open the front door and just sit there and just take in fresh air, because it was so hard not to be able to get out and get fresh air. So that was, that's how I ended up outside, just being able to sit at the front door and enjoy just watching the leaves fall or something.
Sure,
so.
Yeah, because you're used to getting out and going and doing, and then when you're stuck inside, a lot of cabin fever.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you could change your home in any way to make it easier, what would you say those things would be?
Well, we are getting older. My husband and I are getting older, and in the future we might need some more accommodations, but definitely door frames that are wide enough to handle wheelchairs, at the very minimum seated walkers, showers that, luckily we had ours, but there are a lot of people that don't. They have just the bathtub style, so showers that are easily gotten into, and independently gotten into, maybe with some bars or things that will prevent any additional falls for other people. In the kitchen, it would be most helpful to have things lower, not cabinets that are so high where you have to stand up and really reach. I did without a lot of stuff because I couldn't reach the taller things. When you put decks on homes, don't make like little lips on the bottom of the doorways, so that you don't have to lift somebody up over, or maybe you could get sunken, I don't know if there's such a thing, a sunken door frame, so that you can go over it versus a huge bump to go over it. So that would be helpful. Even opening curtains. My curtains aren't the curtains that have the little pull strings, so in order to open it I would have to stand and reach, and that was little things like that you don't even think about. So places to hang your coats,
Right.
there's lots of things you don't think about until you're seated in somewhere and you can't get up to reach and do. And no carpets. We had just gotten hardwood floors a year ago, but we had a living room carpet, so my husband had to roll up the carpet and the padding so that all the walkers and wheelchairs, and it's still up, we still don't have it back in the house. So I would say carpet free environments where you can roll easily and
Sure.
and not have any trip hazards.
Oh yeah, definitely. And a lot of times, even carpets that are put down, like even in hotels and things like that, they put a padding underneath it, and so it's like it's like you're trudging through like mud to try to get through because it has a lot of friction.
The one carpet down in our family room downstairs is a Berber, and when I was on my knee scooter one day, I went to turn to go get a shoe, and it was thicker than the carpet upstairs, or thicker than what I was used to, and it was turning left against my broken arm, and so I ended up falling using, the knee scooter. So carpet is a very big hazard, and if you hit it just right, you can wipe out easily.
Yeah. What changed about driving, getting from your home out into the community for work, appointments, things like that?
Well, we had to get a accessible tag that hangs in our mirror so that we could get out and even go anywhere, doctor's appointments, and then to the grocery store. As far as driving myself, my doctor told me that, you need to drive slowly in the right lane and you should be okay. And I'm like, that's not me. So I was like, no, I don't think so. I'm going to be fine. So I kind of disregarded that statement, but I am more cautious of watching for people to come because I don't want to get hit by somebody and go through more pain. But as far as the handicap accessible, there are places like I went to Barnes & Noble in Harrisonburg. We had a Barnes & Noble night just last week at school, and you realize their accessible parking is across the main road where the traffic is coming very fast and they don't stop. And so I ended up parking in non-accessible parking and then having to walk a further distance with my crutches to get into the store. And I was exhausted by the time I finished. The other thing is accessible bathrooms. Just because you have a stall that is supposed to be accessible, it's larger, it doesn't always mean it's easy to maneuver in there. When you get a wheelchair in there, it's very difficult to turn the wheelchair around, especially if any of the leg pieces are extended. And so those need to be looked at a little better. I'm glad they have them. They have been convenient, but it's also been very difficult to get in and out. Or when you're at the grocery store and you're on a cart that you have all your food in the cart, and then you go to the bathroom and it says no merchandise past this point, what do? You got to go to the bathroom. So one day I even hopped all the way in through the family bathroom because I was afraid of taking merchandise in the bathroom.
Sure.
And then when, for instance, when you go through the line, the card reader, where you put your credit card or debit card in, they don't go down. They're for people that are standing. And so I couldn't see the numbers. I couldn't even see what it was asking me.
Sure.
Sometimes they do, kind of rotate this way, but sometimes they don't. Not all of them do. So, and then finally, they have, a lot of the stores have the electric, wheelchairs or whatever, but how do you get to them? I couldn't go to the store independently because I couldn't get from the car to get in to get one. Do we have the general knowledge that they'll bring it to you when you get to the grocery store?
Right.
I think it's great that you can call and they could bring your groceries to you, but maybe you just want to go yourself.
Right.
So anyway, those kind of things.
Yeah. No. So it's like there are pieces that are out there for accessibility, but maybe not all of the process is thought through.
Right.
And so then you're kind of left trying to pick up, figure things out because it's not seamless.
Right. Well, you've got people that have not been through an accident or been through a time in their lives where they can't do things themselves, and you've got those people doing the planning. You really need somebody who, like Sarah and Scott, who understand what it is to go through that and do the planning. Yeah. And that's why what you're doing is great.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Anything else about getting to work? I mean, I know now that you're at work, you can sort of see a little bit of it, but she has a little scooter that she gets in. So how did you get the scooter? Like, how did that work out?
Well, I have a lot of very generous friends. Every single piece of machinery that I use to get around, people have donated and lent me. This is an electric scooter that one of our PTO members' mother uses when they go to Disney on vacation. And so she just brought it over to school and she plugged it up in our hallway. And when I would get to school in the morning, I would park in the accessible space, which is right near my door, thank goodness, in school. And my teaching assistant would, or somebody, a couple other people learned to drive it too, would bring it out to me when they saw me. And then I would get in it and come in the building. Now that I'm able to use my crutches, I can hop from my car into the building and do it myself. However, this has limitations as well, because the battery is starting to go down at the end of the day. So around 2:00, I can barely get up the ramps in the school because it's starting to die. So I'm having to plug it in, and I will need a new battery. So that, there's limitations with everything. I tried a knee scooter one day, but the knee scooter was, first of all, exhausting, and I was afraid of falling or children knocking into me. So I just didn't feel like that was helpful.
Sure.
My classroom, I've had to move desks into little pods so that I can get in and around. My children have learned to, all I have to do is say, could you scoot in so I can get by? And so they scoot in quickly. They've learned to, be compassionate and pick things up for me. And, oh, Mrs. Downey, I'll do that for you. And so, it's a good thing to teach kids how to deal with this as well. But I do have an accessible bathroom in my classroom.
Nice.
And so it's perfect. I can just go right in there. It has a bar. I did have to put a string on the door so I could pull the door shut. So anyway, get into the bathroom.
Well, and I think it's great because it sounds like without the scooter, you would have really struggled to come back to work.
Oh, I couldn't have.
Yeah.
I couldn't have come back to work. I came back 3 weeks after my initial injury. There's no way I could have done it.
How has this impacted how you do things in the community for leisure, recreation, social activities?
Well, being part of the community, I play golf and I play volleyball. I haven't been able to do either of those. My golf ladies had a party in Massanutten, and I don't know if you've ever been there, but the driveways are steep and most people have a lot of stairs. So I had to forego going to the golf party. It just was going to be too hard to get into it. So there have been things that I've missed, even home group. We go to home group in an apartment complex that doesn't have accessible parking close by, and to be able to even take any of my devices to get into the building, especially on extremely cold nights, it's just, I can't do it. It's just too much. So I've neglected going places for that reason. Couldn't go to the grocery store alone until just this week, and then I figured out a way to do that. But again, it takes a long time to figure stuff out, and it would be nice if we didn't have to take that long to figure stuff out.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and it's planning, and it's thinking through all the little details, and yeah, that impacts.
And it takes longer to do everything. You can't just quickly run into the grocery store or quickly get to work. I had to set my alarm 30 minutes sooner just to get to work. So there's other little components you don't even think about. So
yeah. What is one thing in your community, or in communities in general, that you would want to change to make it easier to participate in different things?
I think to educate people, help them become aware of the needs of people that have disabilities is a big thing. I don't think that every single person understands what it's like. I clearly didn't understand what it was like to be in a wheelchair, and even if it's part-time, it's been a hard pill to swallow. So I think that educating people would be helpful, but I also think that a lot of people are willing to help out a lot. They are willing to come pick you up. They're willing to take you places, but being an independent person, that's difficult. So I do know, for instance, going to the football games has been a blessing. They have an accessible bus. They raise the wheelchair right up on the bus. They drop you right off. They have elevators to go up to the game, so I have been able to participate in that. You can trade your tickets in for accessible seating. So there are components in the community that have been helpful, but I just think more could be done.
Sure. What advice do you have for someone who is interacting with you for the first time and maybe curious about what happened?
Well, it's one nice thing about working in a school is I've gone through, when I first got to school, I felt like a spectacle because I was in an electric wheelchair, and the children were like, whoa, what's Mrs. Downey riding around in? And about 2 or 3 days of that, and then it kind of went away. So I valued the children that came up to me and said, what's wrong? Children are wonderful because they won't hesitate to ask. And if adults would be more like that, and not even ask what's wrong, but just make eye contact, make people recognize that they care. I'm in a very caring community, but I do know there are people out there that probably feel isolated when they go out into the community. So I would love for a community to be able to rally behind people that might have disabilities, and just make them feel like they're regular people. Just because we're in a wheelchair, just because we can't do certain things or talk like you talk or walk like you walk, we are still people, and you still think and feel. We may not always show it or say it, but I would love for the community to recognize that about everybody including me.
Sure.
But, I've had it much easier than a lot of people have.
Well, that's good advice, though.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for businesses or community organizations for making things more welcoming?
Well, again, the businesses need to maybe get people involved that understand what it's like to have disabilities and be in on the planning part of new facilities, whether it be schools, whether it be hospitals, whether it be any of that. If they are trying to plan without people that understand, it's definitely not going to be what's needed by those people. So I would suggest definitely in the planning stages to have people who understand and are willing to put some time in to give their advice and how things could go better for people with disabilities, but also, again, the educating part in the fundraising. I think it's great. When my daughter-in-law gave me that shower chair, there are places in the community, and I think like in our church, where folks have shared their devices with other folks that have needed them. A lot of time it's temporary, but you can have a place where you could go rent some of the things that I was lucky enough to have people share with me.
Yeah,
so you could set up something like that, or even some churches could do that, or some of the physical therapy places could do that and not charge an arm and a leg. Just let them borrow it for a short time. And I think to get people on devices that actually will meet their needs is important too.
Sure. Yeah, because like when you came back from the ER, you were just using deck chairs and
Right.
and
Right.
desk chairs.
Yes.
Yeah. So and that could be it too. People come home and that's all they have, and so that's what they're going to try and use, and they might have another fall or something.
That's
because
right.
of
That deck
the
chair
result.
was not a safe thing to be in. So we recognize that, but I had to have a shower.
Right. Yeah. I have to get clean.
Yes.
Has this impacted any relationships with others that you know of?
I think it has. I think there are some people that it impacted in a positive way. It has. My sisters, for instance, came and spent a week with me and just were a godsend to me because first of all, they knew my needs and they were able to help out. But then there are other people that are not family members that I feel like they've been a lot more compassionate and a lot more patient. But then there's other people that just don't want anything to do with you. And so that makes it hard. Or there's sarcasm that people deal with things different ways. And so sarcasm is not a healthy way to treat people in any of these situations. So, it's a varied amount of, I don't know, people do things different ways.
And I think people just don't know how to interact with somebody. They're like, oh, something's different. I'm not sure what to say. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, it's probably both sides are kind of navigating that at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah. Or anything that you wish more people knew about you?
I was thinking a little bit about that, and I'm a very independent person, as I've said, and I don't like to have a lot of help. And so when you come upon somebody with a disability or somebody who is even temporarily disabled, recognize maybe who they are and get to know them as a person, because it's not always comfortable for some people who like to be independent to have all that help. And then there's other people that probably love to have that help. So getting to know the people and recognizing their needs is important. So yeah, just that I don't need as much help as you think I need.
Well, thank you for taking
You're
the time to answer some questions and tell people your story.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bonnie makes some really great points in her interview about why universal design is important in our homes, in our communities. She learned a lot of this from just trying to get into people's homes, get into her own home, going out and shopping, trying to get to work, trying to make a meal for her family. Her insight was really helpful, and I think it's a great point that we did not pay her to say this, but she did say that it was important to have people with disabilities designing as a part of the design process, because there are little pieces that often get missed, and an individual that has not had that experience might not know those little details that are important for function and are important for self-esteem in being independent in the community. So thanks, Bonnie, for your thoughts and your insight, and I hope you all learned something today from her story. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next time for another story for the Universal Design Project. Thanks. Bye.